Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Happy New Year, Phil.
Happy
2025. Can you believe it?
It's crazy, bro. I was telling my wife, I remember watching cartoons when I was a kid about the year 2000. Not 2025, but the year 2000. And there were flying cars and all of these things. And to everybody, the concept of the year 2000 seemed like it was just an impossible time. You wouldn't live to experience it. And here we are, a quarter century into the 21st century officially, man.
That's the part I can't believe, that it's a quarter of a century already gone.
Right.
Right? I mean,
yes.
Oh God, I guess we're old.
Oh, Mike, you know, I told you I was helping a guy in my neighborhood. He's not doing so well. We were just talking about different stuff that was like a necessity when we first were born. And now in the 21st century, a kid born in the 21st century might not even know certain things.
Yeah.
Like cursive handwriting. I remember all the girls in school used to literally just take pads of paper and practice because they wanted to have the prettiest cursive handwriting. Kids today don't even know how to write cursive, and it's no longer a requirement in school.
I actually think we were probably towards the end of that, because maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I'm almost embarrassed to admit I really can't write cursive either anymore. Like I've totally forgotten how. To be totally honest with you, I've just about forgotten how to write. Period. Like, because how often do you write anything like with your hands? Not very often, right?
I'm very stiff writing. Very stiff.
Yeah. Yeah, it hurts. Like if I have to write too much with my hands, it starts hurting because, you know, you're so used to tapping on your keyboard on your phone or on your computer or whatever. But like, handwriting is becoming a thing of a past altogether.
Is your handwriting hand the one that got hurt?
Hey, that's a kind of an interesting story. So I started as a left-hand writer. I'm naturally left-handed. So I started writing with my left hand, but that happened, I think in I want to say it was, when do you really write? Maybe second or third grade. They switched me because they said my writing was so messy. They switched me to my right hand, which is the one I hurt this summer. So I've been writing with my right hand, but trust me when I tell you, no one can read my handwriting with my right hand either. So neither one is. I mean, I can still write with my left hand. So this summer I wrote with my left hand. So I can write with both hands, but neither one, you probably can't read either one.
So your parents forced you to use your right hand?
It wasn't really my parents. I think it was the school. I think the school kept saying, hey, you know, he sucks at writing. Maybe let's try the other hand. And it is weird because I play hockey left-handed. I play golf right-handed. I can bat baseball left or right. So I am both, but yeah.
I'm ambidextrous in basketball. I can do anything with my left hand that I can do with my right hand, and visually you can't tell the difference.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm a righty for sure.
Yeah.
I'm very dominant right. Mike, I want to talk about 2005. I'm sorry if that's okay with you.
25.
Right. What did I say?
You said 2005. I mean, we can talk about 2005, but I don't know if I can remember that far back.
I was talking to my neighbor about some of the stuff. Like, does a kid know what a phone book is?
No.
And if they do they know how important it was to have a set of phone books as an adult? You couldn't carry out business without a phone book.
Right. And I remember, I don't know about where you grew up, we had a local phone book too. So you had like the big one for the whole area.
Right.
But then you had like a local one, right? For your town or for your area or something. And that was, I remember my mom would like, there was all sorts of notes in it and stuff, writing and circles and, all sorts of crap in there. And we'd go in and look up somebody's phone number. I can't even, it's hard to imagine, to be honest.
And how up to date would it be in this society we live in? People change numbers like crazy.
Oh, yeah, it would never work.
It used to be a person would have a phone number and they would have that for their lifetime.
Yeah.
My mother's phone number is still the same. She still has the same phone number.
Mine is too. Yep, same phone number. And then, by the way, that's one of like maybe 3 phone numbers I can remember. Like I know my mom's phone number, but I couldn't tell you like anybody else's. All my friends, I couldn't tell you any of their numbers.
Same here, bro. Same here.
It's so funny. But I've actually had my current phone number, my cell phone number, since I don't know what year it was. I was one of those first guys to get one of those cell phone bags. It was
me too, Mike.
Right? It was huge.
It was like a phone on top of a car battery.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Mike, don't laugh at me. I used to go to the club with this 60-pound ass thing on my shoulder.
Yeah.
I used to go to the club and thought I was a baller.
Remember when you were a baller because you had a phone?
Right. Oh, yeah.
I remember having it in my car. I had a Mazda RX-7 and I installed the phone in my car. I could take it in and out of the car, but like you had it and you had an antenna on your car. And when you drove down the road, anybody that had an antenna on their car was super cool because it's like, that guy's got a phone. It's funny as hell. Oh my God. Oh yeah. You know what? The other thing, besides to talk about phone books, the other thing that we were talking about yesterday with a couple people here in camp was, remember at Christmas time, I'm sure it was true for you guys, but we had the Sears catalog.
Oh yeah.
And when I was a kid, we would take the section of the Sears catalog with the toys, and we would circle ones that we wanted, and that's what we give to our parents. So like, we want those things, And I was thinking, if Sears actually had some kind of, executive team at the time that could have transitioned that company into online, they would have become Amazon, right? But Sears couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Like they just didn't see that coming. So here they are, and now they're gone.
They were the Amazon of catalog sales.
Yeah.
I remember that was almost like a gift. When you got that catalog, you just poured over it. I would go through every page. I would even go through like the women's section and look at the women's clothes. It was just like an amazing. It was amazing.
You had to look at the underwear section.
Absolutely. I wasn't gonna say that.
That's right. You're like, wow, look at that.
So Mike, I'm gonna really hit you with something. Where my mother lives, back when I was a kid, there was a Sears on 79th Street, so it was our neighborhood Sears. Yep. This was like one of the nicer ones. This was one of the ones like when you watch a 1950s movie in Technicolor, and it'll be this big, beautiful department store.
Yep.
It was like that. Yep. And I remember you had to pass by the candy section. And I distinctly remember arguing with my mother that I didn't want to wear husky jeans. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it's so funny. But, it's funny how times change because, you're looking at like they were one of the big players. Think about the big players back then. You had Sears and you had Kodak and you had
J.C. Penney.
Yeah, all these
Woolworth.
They're all gone. They couldn't, very infrequently can a company morph over time successfully. You know what I mean? Some do for sure. Well, Coca-Cola is a good example of that, right? They've been around a long time. They've morphed over time. They've changed brands. They've changed the look. They've changed it back, whatever. But like Sears is a good example of how to fail. Right? Like most of our adult life now at this point has been watching Sears go from the powerhouse down to out of business, right? I think well, it's interesting. So down here in Mexico, Sears still exists. Like not a lot of them, but there's a Sears an hour away from me where I am right now. You can go to a Sears. It looks like Sears from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's still owned by the same people or it's just, I don't know. Who know what it is. It looks like Sears.
The last Sears here closed a few months ago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I remember years back going into the store, and it felt like one of those movies where you're the last person on earth.
Yep. Yeah, it's been going out of business for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, I didn't like no employees, no guard, nobody.
Nothing. Yeah. So interesting that 2025 that we're here and it's a lot different. But in some ways it's still the same.
Do you have anything that you missed that's gone for good? Like
let me think about that. It's weird. Going back to your telephone book thing. We had one, I guess we had a phone upstairs and one downstairs in our house. And and I remember we had the longest freaking cord on it. So if you wanted to talk in private, you'd pull the phone and I'd go in the closet or something with the phone.
That was for your slimline phone.
Yeah. Yeah. This was pre-cordless phone even. Like this was like with the phone that had the cord on it with the handle. And I'd go in the closet to talk to some girl or something, you know what I mean? So nobody could hear me.
You'd go to Radio Shack and get the 25-foot coiled cord.
Yep. Yep.
RJ11 for those nerds out there.
That's right. What do I miss? I don't know.
I miss a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I miss film cameras. Now, I still own my first film camera. It's an Olympus OM10. I got it in 1981. It was the official camera for the Olympics the following year. Matter of fact, I still have like a sticker peeling off of it with the little Olympic symbol on it.
Yep.
And I took a class in high school with that. And it was a big deal. This was the equivalent of a kid coming to school now with a red camera.
Right. I do miss that. I miss the film photography. The last time I really did quote film photography was when I was in Africa the first time when I spent a year over there in the early 90s. I went with a film camera. And then I remember, I don't know, maybe halfway through the trip, I dropped the camera and it fell, believe it or not, it sounds like a crazy story, but it fell in a lake in Algeria, which obviously is part of the Sahara Desert. So it was kind of amazing we had any water around. But anyways, it got damaged. And I ended up, we were in Egypt and I needed a camera to keep taking pictures on this trip. So I ended up buying a Zenit camera, which, if you know anything about cameras, is Russian.
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it was a Russian camera. And they stole a lot of the technology.
I was going to say it was an imitation of
yes,
of a Leica and a Fuji.
Exactly right. Yeah, their lenses, they were trying to imitate Leica lenses, and it was like a Fuji. Yep. So I had that camera for the rest of the trip, and it was typical Russian style. Like when it worked, it was okay, but then shit would never work on that thing. I mean, it was like you're cranking it.
It had the nastiest sounding click.
Yes,
it had a clunk. It didn't have a click. It had like a clunk.
A clunk, exactly. Like the glass fell out inside every time. Yeah.
Oh, the glass was horrible. It was like a Pepsi bottle.
Yeah. Yep. But that's really the last time I took film, because after that, from then on, most of my trips, my overlandy kind of trips towards the end of the 90s became digital. And when I say digital, I mean like I had that Panasonic, I don't know what kind of camera it was, I don't remember. And it took the flash drives, or not flash drives, I don't even know what they're called anymore. What are those things called? The disc drive. And it was a disc drive camera, and it would fit about maybe it would fit 14 pictures on a disc.
Very pixelated.
Pixelated, and it would take forever. You'd load it, and you'd hear it going. It would load anyways. So I actually have. I've been uploading. If you go to my website, I have pictures from back in those days, and I've obviously now I've converted all. Well, those were digital, anyways. Converted over, but we were shooting even in 2001 when I went across the Sahara. We were not shooting in digital, or we were shooting in high 8 on tape for video. It was still tape. It wasn't. There was no digital.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fairly recent.
I tried to keep doing film. When the digital cameras came out, I got the digital cameras, but I tried to hold on to still doing film. The problem was not the technology of the film camera, because in the beginning, the film camera still had a way better picture than those first digital cameras. But the problem is now, it's hard to find a developer.
I'm about to say, I mean, I may be clueless, but like if I took film right now, first of all, I don't even know where you would buy film. If I took a film picture now, I can't walk into CVS or Walgreens, right?
Oh, see, and that's my point. I don't want to go into a CVS. The kind of photography that I want to do with a film camera, I want to talk to a developer so that he can make adjustments.
Sure.
But
I mean, but there's no instant developing anymore, right? There's nobody doing that.
They're all online. You get they send you a bunch of little package you send them.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Here we happen to have like a major camera store.
Yeah,
and that store has a little
dark room, and they have their own setup.
But they deal with such high end people. They sell Leicas, and almost all their film people are Leicas.
Yeah,
and the amount that it costs to get this film developed through them, you got to really love film camera.
Right. Well, the other thing is, let's be honest. There was a point at which everybody, myself included, was fighting digital cameras, right? And for the first, 5 years, 10 years, there came a point where the digital camera became better than the film camera. This is a fact. And the fact that you could take thousands of pictures. I mean, you've almost got to be mindless or clueless not to get a good picture out of that. Whereas a film camera, you can't do that, right? I mean, you can only you got to pick and choose what you're doing. It's an art form.
So for all you youngsters out here, back in the day, I used to literally have to measure the distance between me and the axis of my camera, take a light meter, hold it up to your face, and then put those in there and still hope that it was going to turn out right.
Right. Now, there were so many factors. What kind of film you were using,
right?
What exposure settings, what aperture. I mean, there were so many different things. Nothing was automatic, right? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And once I started learning how to edit, it was like, I can't even deal with this film no more, because in the film, you would go to the developer, he would do what you say, but then you'd look at him and be like, no, this isn't good. But you'd have to pay to have him redo them.
Right.
Now I just keep clicking till I get it right.
Now, at the risk of getting somebody out in our listening audience mad, I'm going to take it a step further here. I mean, we're talking about, the transition from, film to digital. I'd argue that photography in general is dead. Meaning we also subsequently switched from still photography to video, and like nobody takes a picture anymore unless you're in fact, most of the pictures I take at this point are off of video, because video is so good that you could take a still photo off of the video, and that's what you're going to use for the gram, right? Like, So, I mean, unless you're putting up pictures on social media, nobody's taking a picture anymore, really. Right?
Bro,
I mean,
I remember the last time I went to Utah. I can't think of it's a famous arch that everybody takes pictures of, and the light is coming through the arch.
Yeah.
Um, last time I went there, there was like 16 people with cameras on tripods.
Yeah.
Now, for perspective, normally you'd have 200 people with tripod. It was about 16 people with tripods, and everybody else was like this.
Yeah.
They got their they had their iPhones out.
And I'll take it even a step further. Not only is photography dead, I would say video and camera gear is just about dead, because the reality is what you just did. Most stuff is coming from your iPhone or your Android, or maybe you're using, like, if you're me and you're doing social media stuff, maybe you're using a DJI Osmo, or you're using a GoPro, or you're using something, but like the reality is most everything's coming from a phone now.
It is an obstacle using all the other stuff now.
It is.
The weight of it, being able to take it into tight spaces, the way people react, everything.
Is there a market for, like, do they even sell like camcorders anymore?
Oh yeah.
Really?
That's what I use.
Well, no, but you're talking about professional level grade more. Like, I'm talking about, like, when you used to go into Best Buy and you had a whole lineup of like camcorders. I don't even think they exist.
I don't know. I'm thinking they don't.
Like, who is going to walk around with a camcorder at this point? If you're just yeah, exactly. If you're just a tourist and you're not doing it for art or profession, you're going to use your iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone with like what is it, a consumer or prosumer?
Like a consumer or even a prosumer.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This is.
I remember I used to buy them all the time. I had Panasonics. I had because when I traveled in Africa, I went from the Panasonic platform, because they were doing a lot of prosumer stuff in the beginning, and I had a bunch of different Panasonic ones, and I would upgrade and get a better one, and it would be better resolution, it would be better light, blah 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 blah. And they started out being a foot long, and then they were like 8 inches, and then they started getting smaller, and the format was originally it was like the big tape, and then it was the mini tape, and it was the high 8 tape, and then it was like a little tape, and then it became a card, and then it was on the camera. Now it's digital, but then I think they just disappeared. I'm like, I mean, I don't know. I'm so clueless to what goes on, I think, in the world at this point. I mean, do they sell CDs anymore? Like, I've been buying music from. I don't know. I've been buying music, from iTunes or online, or listening to it online on streaming on my Amazon or whatever. Like, I have no idea. Like, I remember being excited in my old days, going into the mall and going to the record store, and which became the CD store, and you just look for hours at music.
Mike, listen to me. I had a Jeep in the 90s, and I had the boom boom box in my
yeah.
Listen, I had a 16 CD changer in the back.
Yeah, that's right.
So you could have 16 CDs.
Yep. And you had to pull over to change them.
Yeah, I had to pull this big box out and refill it with CDs.
Yep.
So what I would do is, like, 3 of the CDs would be CDs that on the computer I made music. So it would have like 300 songs on each CD.
Thank you, Napster. God, did I love Napster. I know we're really dating ourselves today, boy.
Oh, bro, I remember the Napster wars, because there was more than one. They're still around, because that's how I get my music on my phone is through my Napster app.
But now it's just, now it's, you gotta, it's legit. Before it was just like, it was stealing music.
Napster is literally the beginnings of streaming music.
Yes, absolutely. It was crowd shared or crowdsourced or whatever, but it was streaming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy to think about what has changed over I mean, I'm only talking here from 2000 to 2025. Like I'm only talking about the last 25 years of change.
Oh, in the last 25 years,
like
I said, I said the phone book, cursive writing,
phones, all the cell phones. I mean,
telephone booths.
Telephone booths. I saw one. Funny enough, you say that. Yesterday or the day before, I saw a phone booth here in Mexico. You don't see that shit here even. and I didn't have a phone in it, so it was, it wasn't working. But I don't know. I mean, they're behind here, but they don't even have telephone booths.
Everybody has a phone, bro.
Yeah, everybody. And the developing countries have realized that it's way easier to put cell towers in and get everybody to have a cell phone than it is to run wires, right? So there's actually more cell phone usage in some cases in places that you would never imagine it would be, because it's just become so much easier.
I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten, I got her a cell phone. And I remember how everybody thought that was just the most bougie, crazy, out of place thing to do. Right. And by the time my daughter was in 3rd grade, it was commonplace for kids to have.
Right.
And to this day, it's like every kid has a phone.
Absolutely. And, well, it's a safety and security thing on top of it.
Makes me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's changed because, man, when we were kids, we were essentially off grid, right? We were out. My parents had no idea where the hell we were.
Right. As long as I got home before it was night.
Yes.
I was good.
Right. But they had to trust us and know where we were, because now, I mean, hell, you can give your kid a phone and you can track them. You know exactly where they are. Stick an AirTag on them.
But, bro, I found out these kids are savvy.
They are.
They know how to. They know how to beat that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways.
People will always figure out how to do wrong.
Yep. So here we are in 2025. We've been talking about the past.
Watches, Mike.
Yeah. What about watches?
Something you don't know about me is I'm a watch dude.
Well, as I am.
I've got a machine, a winding machine in my bedroom with automatics, and so does my wife, because we have some watches that we have the male and female.
And there's an industry that basically went from you need to have a watch industry to now a watch like that. What you're talking about, a real one, is it's a luxury item, right? It's an art. Watches that are made that actually have moving parts inside them, and that you have to wind or shake. That's art. Now we're all strapped into it.
This is all I wear.
We got an iPhone, an iWatch, an Apple Watch, whatever, a Google. I mean, they got them for everybody's got them. Garmin, and those are. I mean, that's another part of technology. I mean, talk about. I'll tell you what's changed from 2000 to 2025.
When I was a kid, one of the first rules of manhood my father taught me was, you should have a good pair of shoes, a watch, a nice watch, and a good pen.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Now, none of them things mean anything.
That's right. They're all gone. You don't need anything. That's true. But I mean, think about like all these devices that we use now that have replaced the old ones. Every one of them tracks you, and that's the biggest difference in the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. I love when people say, I don't like to give out my information.
And they don't last.
Well, they don't last. But you're just being tracked. Whether it's your watch, your phone, which I was about to call my phone a camera because I look at it, I think it's a camera, not a phone. It's like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago on the podcast about the guy in New York City that killed the insurance guy. You can walk anywhere in the world at this point and you can assume that you've been recorded, you were on a camera, they can track you everywhere. You know, we just had that thing in New Orleans, right? And they have already figured out which way the car drove, where it came from. They've tracked it all around town. Like,
oh, they connected him up with other groups and crimes.
Yeah.
Wow.
In minutes.
Some of my favorite movies are those movies where a guy or a girl is an upstanding citizen and all of a sudden they're thrust into a situation like they accidentally hit a kid and they panic or something like that and kill the kid. And then the rest of the movie is about them trying to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
You hit a kid or something like that now, just stop. Call the cops.
That's right. That's right. You're not getting away with it. Period. End of story.
Right.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's a different world for sure.
And you can't tell lies, bro. You literally, we've experienced it together. You'll be at an event telling a person, they'll be asking you questions about yourself while they're Googling on the phone and looking up your social media and everything about you.
Mm-hmm. I get it constantly at this point. Like more often than not, when somebody comes up to me, I used to get, when I first hit the road, I used to get questions all the time. Like, oh, look, that's a cool truck. What do you do with that truck? You know, what's this Drive the Globe on the side of it? Just in the 5 years I've been on the road, now when people walk up, exactly what you just said, Phil. I just saw that you did this last week, and you and Phil were talking about this on the podcast, because they've already, just in the last 5 years, they've gotten so used to seeing a truck with a thing on the side of it, and they immediately know they're on the phone, looked up everything, they know your whole life story, and then they start talking to you.
Yes,
it's crazy. Yeah. So I tell people, look, if you want to hide, you best be hiding somewhere off grid. Do not have any kind of electronic device whatsoever. Do not be plugged into any kind of company like power or water or anything else. And you better never go to town, because you'll be on a camera. They'll track you anyway. So unless you're going to plan on living in the woods in a Ted Kaczynski shack and never go anywhere, no devices and no interaction, forget it. You might as well just be public, you know?
And how many places can you really stay in the woods and nobody come across you?
Not many.
Even in the big wildernesses that we have here.
No. You still got to go. Inevitably, you're going to go into town to get supplies. You're going to, there's no way. Not to mention the fact is, even on Google Earth, for crying out loud, I mean, I can zoom in, not that I'm seeing anything live, but man, you can zoom in and get a layout of anything anywhere. You know, there was an article that came across the news, I don't know, today, you know, and I get sucked into these articles, something about they figured out what volcano blew up in 1850 something, and it caused the, it was the end of the last little mini ice age, or anyways, they figured out it was on this island that's in between Japan and Russia. So anyways, I'm on the computer, I zoom in on the island. I go, you know, I'm looking at it. I go, oh, look at that. There, it's uninhabited. But look, it looks like there used to be a fort, and the Soviets had a military. That, you know, you can figure anything out now. Like, think about that. 20 years before the internet, you and I would have been in a library somewhere for months on end doing some kind of research and coming out with less information than you and I could come up with in the next 45 seconds if you challenged us to something.
Yeah, and like,
think about that.
Just like when I'm doing trails, a lot of times people will see a picture I posted and they'll be like, wait a minute, I was there. Where is that part of the trail at? And it's like, because I went to Google Maps and I went to the, where it makes the picture imagery. And I'll see where there's a trail that's not on on Trails or Gaia GPS.
Yeah. Well, which is crazy, though. The other thing is, now the technology has gotten so interesting, is that you can be place identified just about everywhere now, just from a photo, because there's all sorts of different programs now that you can take a photo and stick it in, and it'll tell you where that's located. It'll figure it out by backgrounds, it figures whatever. There's all sorts of ways of doing it. It's all part of this AI thing now, which, you know, not to bring it to current times. Here we are in 2025. I hate AI, to be honest with you. I'm so tired of people posting these fakey pictures on social media and stuff. And, and unfortunately it's getting so good that now it's becoming more increasingly difficult to determine what's real and what's not, unless you use a brain, so, you'll get stuff like somebody posted something in the King Tut's tomb the other day, in Egypt, and it looked real as shit. And the story was real as shit, totally fabricated, totally complete AI garbage. But
have you seen the one where the polar bear cub, they're pulling it into the boat?
Yeah. And
they're petting it and everything.
I saw it on TikTok. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's fake. I mean, and that's my point is that, now we went from, so let's see, photography's dead, still photography, pictures are dead. We've moved into video, we've moved into all electronic, and now we're moving away. Now we're getting to a point where you don't even need to shoot the damn video anymore. You just ask the computer to make it.
And that's why I don't like the AI thing. I'm intrigued with the technical side of it, but the actual applied is the issue that I have.
Yeah.
And I consider myself an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first creeds of art of an artist is being creative. Right. And what I'm seeing now is AI is basically taking everything that's ever existed and just regurgitating it.
Yep.
So like I saw some kind of demonstration on YouTube where they were using the AI, and it was like, write a script about a man who at age 54, blah, 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 blah. And it wrote a complete movie script.
Mm-hmm.
But when you looked at the script, it was a very good, well-written script, but there was nothing new there. And that's what I'm seeing with the AI. I'm not seeing nothing new. I'm just seeing a remix.
But the scary part, though, is for me, is that exactly what you just said. You ask for a script about a 54-year-old guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I've used it enough at this point. I can tell you, trying that out a year ago and today is night and day different. Just in 1 year, it's gotten so much better. So what's it going to look like in 2026? I mean, the point is like it's moving at incredible speed.
And now, like you go on Amazon or you go anywhere, they now have that little AI chat thing.
Yeah.
And it'll surmise what all of the reviews said.
Yep.
That's crazy.
By the way, when you go on Google now, when you Google something, the first thing that pops up at the top is the AI thing telling you its summary of what you're going to find below. And generally speaking, it's mostly right.
I give it that. The information is accurate.
Yeah. So
it's just learned how to pull up the information and make it conversational.
Yeah, conversational and faster than you could do it. So we were just comparing a couple minutes ago between going to a library and researching through books to now Googling, but now it's gone infinitely from us Googling to AI doing it for you is even a million times faster, probably.
Yeah, I was reading that a lot of colleges now are instituting some kind of rule or regulation or whatever you want to call it about AI because people are writing papers with AI.
Of course. Yeah, that's never going to work. I mean, I would give it about 3 years, and colleges are going to require you to write your paper in AI. Because that's. I mean, when I was in college, it was the beginning of computers. Basically, there were classes that wouldn't allow us to use a computer. They were like, "You're not allowed to use a computer." What?
I've never understood how people get caught forging or plagiarizing their papers. I did it my whole life in school.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
let's face it, like. Well, of course, by the definition of doing research, going to the library and getting stuff and using Cliff Notes and whatever else that we did, you're copying it from somewhere.
But what are you doing? You must be just like going word for word almost.
Right.
I read what it says and then I reword it like AI does.
Exactly, just like AI. So now you got AI can do it for you. It's crazy.
Mike, so how do you see the the next 25 years?
Oh man, I you know what? I have no idea. Like, look, I wouldn't have called. You know, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that I would see New Year's Eve with Donald Trump and Elon Musk dancing together. You know what I mean? Like, I can't call anything about what's happening anymore. So, you know,
Mike,
I mean, we've got rockets coming down and being caught by chopsticks. We got, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen in 25 years.
What did I tell you months ago about Elon Musk and Trump? Remember I was saying I watched this show about the Titans of America?
Yeah.
And I said they are going to be the characters 20, 30 years from now in the next documentary about the Titans of America.
Yep. They
are new and unusual. I love it.
I do too. I don't know where we're going right now. That's a great question. For the first time, I can honestly say it moves so fast, and there's just so much different technology and AI stuff, and it's difficult to predict where we're going. You know, I don't know. I think space. We're going to be sending people back to the moon and to Mars and to. I mean those are all. I would say that's a foregone conclusion at this point.
Well, with that said, I think we will be moving toward Mars and places like that. But here on Earth, I think we will be less mobile. I think fewer people will own vehicles. I think fewer people will go on long journeys in their vehicle. And I'm not even talking about overlanding. I mean, just like taking a drive from Seattle to BC. I think the way we move is going to change significantly and how far we move.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a number of factors. I think we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast. Like, you know, I've seen a huge dip in the amount of overlanders and nomads on the road. And by the way, it's continuing. You know, I talked to some that came through here. Some of my friends showed up for Christmas and New Year's. And, you know, I am personally familiar at this point with a number of people that have made decisions to change their travel plans based on world politics. And by the way, from the last time I talked to you, we touched on the mainland Mexico situation a little bit with the Sinaloa cartel having their sort of like, quote, internal civil war. Well, that's now spread to northern Baja. So even the route that I come down through San Felipe, which is about 2 miles south of Yuma, Arizona, they now have set up additional 2 checkpoints. The cartel has implemented a 7 p.m. curfew. They're asking people not to go out after those hours for risk of being involved or getting caught in a crossfire. So when the cartel puts out a press release, that's interesting, and that's here in Baja. Now, northern Baja has always been, you know, it's along the U.S. border, so it's been a little bit different. But I'll tell you what, I've had a number of overlanders change their plans that were going to do the Pan American Highway that have now decided that they're not. And I've got a couple friends that are over in Africa, and they were going to continue their trek up north and go into Europe. They've also canceled that for instabilities post. Russia, taking out what's his name, the Wagner Group guy, and there's been some changes in the country. So there's a lot of political and shifting of control. We saw it with Syria happening. You know, who knows what that's gonna create in the Middle East. So I see that the world has suddenly become. If you were looking at that 2 minutes to midnight clock or whatever the hell it is for nuclear thing. I mean, I think I don't know what it is right now, but if I had it, in my opinion, we're about as close as we've ever been to big world problems. And I think that's going to restrict travel in some ways, outside of even what you're talking about, Phil, because you're talking about it more, I think, more from an economic, from a cultural, and from a
just sort of I wasn't even talking standpoint. About like I was referring to like the culture of how we travel is going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, like going to work it's going to be less and less fashionable for one person to get in one vehicle and drive to work for an hour.
Yeah.
You're going to see more buses. You're going to see more trains, ferries, mass.
Yep.
You know,
I think the migration is actually going to, during the pandemic, you had people migrating away from the cities into the country. I think you're going to see the opposite happening. I think you're going to see people. About. Yeah, I agree. I think people are going to migrate back to the urban areas more. Yep. I mean, we could be, hey, we're good at making predictions on this podcast. And so far we've been pretty right on most of them.
We have had so many back-to-back tragedies and that have happened in America that are making people aware of 20 minutes outside of the city, and the world is different.
Yeah.
Like I think I've mentioned it before. The city I live in, Issaquah, it can fool you. It can lull you into believing that you're in like a regular city. Yeah. But we're on the side of a mountain and 5 minutes from the forest, and there's a bridge that keeps us away from getting to the city. And then there's a mountain pass that keeps us from going the other way.
Yeah.
And enough things have happened where people are starting to realize, hey, I'm not as secure in living in this remote area as I thought I was.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that security is a big thing. So, I mean, we're looking at a change of leadership in the United States, which you and I spent a lot of time over the last 6 months talking about politics on this podcast. But I think that is a huge, whether or not you support or hate the incoming leadership, I think that they're going to set a direction that the world is going to go along with. And I don't honestly know what that's going to be yet, but I think that that's also part of all of this thing, because look, if we don't get some of these issues under control, we're fighting on too many fronts, I guess is the best way to say it. We're fighting on too many fronts. You can't do that.
We're fighting on too many fronts. And here at home, we have unrest.
Yes.
And that's the worst. That's the worst mix to have.
Yeah.
You've got your hand in all of these fires, but right at home, you've got people ready to mutiny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, not to paint a gloomy, doomy picture of 20, but if you were asking me to give you, and maybe we'll do that in a couple of weeks because it'll be time for State of the Union, but if you were asking me to give State of the Union right now for two things, one for the U.S. in general, I would say it's fairly poor. That could change. And if I was giving you the State of the Union for the Overland nomad sort of adventure travel community, I would say it's in poor shape right now.
Well, I think America is really down and out right now. But then what brings it into perspective for me is when I say to myself, well, if money weren't an issue and you could live anywhere else, where would you live right now? And I wouldn't want to live nowhere else but in America.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so basically, America is still a great place to be. But the flip side is the world is just, there's nowhere to run and hide.
Mm-mm.
There are issues everywhere, every country, every continent. There are issues going on.
And a lot of that's, it's always been a problem, but a lot of that is we see it very quickly because of all these technologies that we've been talking about today on the podcast, and how quickly things happen and how quickly we can share things. So, it's not inconceivable that somebody in, I don't know, the middle of the desert in Yemen right now can effectively dialogue and run something going on in the States because the technology is all there to do it. So your degrees of separation from terrorism or from bad hombres or whatever you're talking about is it's not that far anymore. You know what I mean? You can't run and hide anywhere. There's nowhere to hide.
Well, in some situations, it's also just it comes back to the social media thing. There are a lot of things that are going on that worry us, that concern us, that have been happening all throughout American history. We just didn't know about it the way we know about them.
We just didn't know about it.
Like I can tell you multiple different times in history where some major company has basically bought a third world country and had their tires made or rubber made or bananas and paid that government off. The things that are coming up about us, we've been doing all along. We just didn't know every detail.
Yep. That's right. Now we know every detail immediately.
And as Jack Nicholson famously said, we can't handle the truth. A lot of things is we can't handle the truth. There are certain things that come with being an empire. And first of all, you have to come to the realization we are the empire.
Mm-hmm.
And there's either you continue to be one or you don't. And you don't want to not be the empire. Not during your lifetime.
That's right.
So there's some uncomfortable truths that Americans have to come to grips with. Because you can sit at home and have your tree hugging feelings about and peace and all of that stuff, but empires have to kick ass. And if you want to keep talking on your iPhone and having first world problems, we got to go kick some ass.
Agreed. Not to change the subject, but you're talking about social media. What's your what do you think is going to happen with TikTok?
I think TikTok ain't going nowhere.
That's what I think too. But
I don't even think that the original issues that started this were a true concern. I'm not saying that I don't think China isn't hoarding information, but I believe every single app on your phone does that.
Exactly. TikTok's no different than anybody else. They all are.
I hope that you know what? We don't have the kind of listeners that would be stupid enough to believe that when you're on your phone and it says, don't allow this app, this information, that they actually heed that warning.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. Give me a break. No, you're right. They've got access to everything. And when I say they, that's everybody. That's the U.S. government. That's the Chinese. That's whoever wants access can get access.
And I was explaining to somebody the other day about how security works. People look at things real black and white. In order to keep catching people, I can't tell you how I catch you.
Right. That's right.
So these apps, they never tell you that they use these apps to catch you in the different things that they catch you in. But that's how they catching you.
Of course.
When I was in telecommunications, we'd have times where things were slow. So they send us out into the offices to help people in their cubicles with their computers because it was a new thing. Half the time, I just hit Control Alt Delete and acted like out.
Yep.
But we were involved in cybersecurity in the 90s when these computers were first coming out in 95. Yep. And we knew every keystroke and what was going on from the very beginning. But the way you hear it, people think that that's a recent thing. It's always been there. Don't do nothing on no kind of computer or social media or nothing and think that it's not trackable.
Totally trackable. Yep. And you know what? If you're behaving, I say behaving, but who cares if China knows everything about what I'm doing on TikTok? Who gives a shit? I mean, that's my bottom line. I don't. Who cares?
There are a lot of people. I would say there are a majority of people that have some embarrassing truth about them. It may be something that if I told you what it was, you'd be like, "Oh, that's nothing." But to that person, you cannot convince them that this is not the worst thing in the world. So,
I mean, and that may be true, but whether or not TikTok is banned or not is not going to limit whether or not that potential thing could get out, right?
I agree, but I'm just saying the psychology behind the China thing is that they can find some obscure piece of information about you and then make you a mole or spy for the country or something like that.
I mean, I get the theory. I mean, that sounds great. And it sounds like a TV show, but I mean, I don't, I just, reality sets in. Come on. I don't know. I don't think TikTok's going anywhere. I agree. And even furthermore, we had a conversation the other day because they were also on DJI, which, by the way, you're watching me on this. If you're watching this podcast, you're watching me on a DJI camera. So, but they want to ban that, and because they can completely control the U.S. Drone market. And I guess we're not comfortable with that because they're made in China. I don't know.
I have to be honest, Mike. I've been getting drones from them since the beginning.
Me too.
I got like 3 drones right now. I've got 6 action cameras. I've got 2 sets of mics. I'm all in on DJI.
As am I. Yep.
But I have always hated that they require you to log in and use apps and register for things like my action cameras. Why do I have to?
Well, I can answer that question, Phil, if you really don't understand. But you're right. I can't fly my drone without going in and updating and going through the app and being logged into their server, basically, in order to update to make the drone be able to fly. So I get the point that the U.S. government's like, hey, we got a bunch of our citizens that have to log in basically with the Chinese government in order to use their drone. I get it.
But I love their products, but I have always had an issue with the way they handle security and information.
Yep. And I don't know, for those of you out there that are listening that maybe weren't aware of that, there is a real thing with that. And Phil's not making that up because all of the products that I have, and same with me, I have the cameras, I have the drones, I've got the microphones, I've got all that stuff as well. Here's my DJI right there. It's true. They've controlled it to a point, and which, by the way, is not unlike Apple. There you go. This is Phil's. But it's not unlike Apple. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, so that's an American company, but they require you can't do shit on your iPhone without being logged in, connecting it to the iTunes, connecting it to the I mean, it's the same. It's the same garbage.
You can't really use an Apple phone unless you have a credit card.
That's right.
You basically
talk about that. You saw that, by the way. We never talked about that on the podcast. I mean, did you see that the hearing thing the other day on the credit card companies, MasterCard and Visa were there? Do you know their profit margin is more than 50%? I mean, holy hell, there's no business in America that has a profit margin that high. These guys, I mean, anyways, that's a different podcast. But
that's pimping.
That's pimping. That's right. That's right. That's right.
And we the hoes.
And we the hoes. But I mean, but anyways, so getting off tangent here, but you look, you're being tracked. I'm being tracked. I don't care. I'm one of those people that doesn't care. You can look up anything about me on social media or on the internet or whatever you can find out. I don't really give a crap. But,
I gave up on that a long time ago.
Yeah. You're fighting up. You're swimming upstream. So, anyways, that's where we are in 2025. What do you think's going to happen this year, Phil? Let's say something good about 2025.
Oh, bro, I'm an optimistic person, just realistic. That's all. I think 2025 is going to be an excellent year for people who are positive minded, people who have goals. We'll have a new president. I think the economy will start. It has already started to turn, but I think there'll be a much more significant turn. So people who are positive and doing the right thing, I think they'll be rewarded in the economy. I believe that we will see a lot of technological innovation introduced specifically in the year 2025. I'm optimistic about 2025. I really am. I'm just realistic to realize that there'll be wars, there'll be droughts, there'll be, bad things that happen too.
I'm going to call 2025. I think you mentioned wars. I think you're going to end the Ukraine war and the war in Israel / Gaza Strip. That you're going to get an end to both of those. That's my prediction.
I can see that, but there's so much unrest going on all at the same time.
Yeah.
Even if everything that's going on stopped, I see something popping up that we're going to have to jump in because Russia jumped in or because China jumped in.
Yep.
So we could decide we want to be peaceful, and Russia or China can induce us into war.
Yep.
Even if it's indirectly, because it's happening right now. We're basically having a war with Russia and China indirectly.
Correct. Yep. It's been one of our biggest wars we've fought in years is this Ukraine thing. It's a proxy war between us and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
No question. And the reason I think it's going to end is because we've won. We've already won in a sense that we've decimated their infrastructure. We've decimated the Russian. We've learned everything that we need to know about the Russian military. We know that they suck. We've learned we don't have anything else to gain at this point.
Did you hear about the cables being torn up in Norway? The telecommunication
underground, under the water.
Was that Russia?
I think so. Yeah. Well, they're not admitting it, but yeah.
That was just off topic. I decided to ask you that. Mike, we're out of time.
We are out of time for the first week of 2025.
And
if you're listening to this right now, we recorded this very soon before you're listening to it because we got screwed up by the holidays and we're recording this late. So we're recording this and we're going to get it out to you quick. So
Mike, let's be honest with our audience. Me and Mike were more interested in partying during the holidays than doing this damn podcast.
That's right. So we took a week or two off, but we're back and at it for 2025.
Oh, okay. Mike, is there anything else you want to say?
That's it.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.